Grace and peace to you from the one who was and is to come. Amen. Pablo Picasso, the Spanish artist who changed the course of art history, went through an emotional turmoil in his early years. His dear friend, the Spanish poet Carles Casagemas, shot himself in the middle of a dinner party in Paris. It affected Picasso deeply, and later he would share that it was thinking about Casagemas that got me started painting in blue. There were other deaths before his friend's passing that troubled him. His 7-year-old sister Conchita died of diphtheria, and his fellow painter and friend Hortensi Goel, who was part of the circle in Barcelona, threw himself off a cliff. He was also aware of Vincent van Gogh's suicide. His painting The Death of Casagemas shows similarities with Van Gogh's impastoed brushwork and moody palette. Some scholars consider it a homage to Van Gogh. Picasso channeled his pain and grief for his sister and friends into a body of work known as the Blue Period. The series of canvases were characterized by cold colors, melancholy blues, dusky grays, and sickly greens. Picasso was still trying to find his own unique artistic voice and could not make a living from painting. His self-portrait from 1901 reveals a tormented artist cast out of society. He looks much older than a 20-year-old young artist. In exploring human destiny, Picasso uses the color blue to communicate the pain and desolation of social outsiders, prisoners, circus people, the poor and destitute. Their bent bodies speak of everyday hardships, poverty, illness, loneliness, and dejection. Some scholars also interpret these depictions as a critique of the poor treatment of the working class during the Industrial Revolution. Picasso was deeply troubled. Painting was his way of processing both personal grief and conveying the state of vulnerability he encountered among people at the margins of society. Of particular influence was his visit to a women's prison in Paris, where nuns served as guards. The painting The Two Sisters reveals the merging of daily reality with Christian iconography. Their posture reminds us of the way artists depicted the angel's visitation to Mary, with the color blue symbolizing the Mother of God. It was Picasso's way of restoring the dignity of those shunned by society. Picasso's artistic engagement with his inner and outer world resonates with what David Whyte calls the conversational nature of reality. To live is to be part of an ongoing conversation between everything that exists inside and outside of us. Such intimate exchange calls for the kind of deep listening that the poets of our treasured book of Psalms practice. To illustrate this, I would like to explore the emotional world of Psalm 30 in conversation with some of Pablo Picasso's painting from the Blue Period. Their silent presence speaks to both the turmoil our psalmist suffers and her yearning for relief. Psalms are prayerful songs. There's one verse in Psalm 30 that stood out for me. Weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning. This line will be my constant refrain, the chorus that keeps returning and captures the mood of the song. Indeed, sometimes all we need is a single line that captures our imagination. It is along those lines that David Whyte notes, one of the marvelous things about poetry is that you can travel 1,000 miles in one line. You can come home to yourself if it's the right line. In all our great spiritual traditions, you're always just one step away from home, although it may take your whole life to take that one step. Verse 5 from Psalm 30 is such a line for me. Weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning. The poetic line invites me to travel 1,000 miles, to be just one step from home, although it may take my whole life to take that one step. We don't know why our psalmist is weeping. Most of the times, the Psalms do not name the actual circumstances that lead to such a strong emotions of sadness and joy. But by remaining vague, the poet allows us to fill the blanks with our own specific circumstances that evoke the same strong feelings. It allows for a certain resonance with our own feelings of despair and relief. As readers, we are taken into a conversation, a deeper listening, an exchange from heart to heart between ourselves and the psalmist. Even though we have never met before and shall only ever meet on paper, in the moment of reading and hearing the psalm, a conversation unfolds. The psalmist moves between speaking to God and about God. Her face is turned towards both God and the congregation. I picture her eyes being wide open when she seeks the reassurance of her brothers and sisters. I see her eyes closing when she searches for God's invisible presence. She recalls the weeping at night and the joy of the morning. She allows us to share in the movement of her own heart and invites us to make her words our own words of prayer. Weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning. We know about weeping at night when no one can see or hear us. There is a hidden conversation between ourselves and the night. Is the night our friend or our foe? Do we welcome or fear the night? The night can offer solitude and instill loneliness. It can offer privacy, but also make one invisible. Darkness can protect us, but it can also make us feel incredibly exposed and vulnerable. The psalmist tells us that her weeping lingers for the duration of the night. Is she saying that her weeping lasts as long as the night lasts, or that the night lasts as long as the weeping lingers? The night speaks to her of God's absence. God's face is hidden to her. She interprets such absence as an expression of God's anger. When we lose our footing and chaos strikes, our first thoughts are often, what have I done wrong? Why is God against me? Why did God turn her face away from me? The darkness of the night mirrors the darkness within herself. The loss of sight mirrors a loss of insight. She is at loss, but not for words, and blames herself. In her despair, she begins to negotiate with God. What is gained if I am silenced, if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you? Will it proclaim your faithfulness? It is difficult to be present to an experience of loss. especially when the pain is deep and raw, and it is understandable that we would prefer not to enter into such a conversation with ourselves or with those who invite or push us to do so. David White comments on how being present to our lives is a huge undertaking, for such presence is not just about hearing the intoxicating birdsong of the morning. To be present to ourselves and the world is to realize that half of that conversation has to do with disappearance and death and pain. He continues to say, every human being has the right to say, listen, God, if this is the conversation you want me to have, I'm not having it. I'm going to create my own little bubble or my own little video game where I control what's going on. And in order to do that, I have to create an insulatory dynamic, like an invisibility cloak that guarantees I cannot be found, cannot be touched, cannot be heard. If you are present, of course, you have no such insulation. Our psalmist dares to have this conversation. The fear of being silenced by the forces of chaos and death is stronger than the fear of having this conversation. Her grief is not just about accepting what cannot be imagined. It is also an expression of protest against what seems intolerable. Resistance is stirring up within her. She dares to speak to the night within and without and praise to her God. How difficult it can be to allow such presence, to allow ourselves to be found and heard, to be touched and helped. The fear of sudden loss can make us withdraw and even push away those who try to be of help. So much of our formation is about learning to be self-sufficient, independent and autonomous. We do not want to be seen weak, vulnerable, out of our depths, in need of help. We do not want to be a burden to others. But we also have reasons to be cautious, suspicious and on guard. As well-meaning as friends in need can be, their help and advice can at times reveal their own fear of loss and disappearance. Their desire to save us might simply expose their own desperate need to save themselves. They cannot tolerate our powerlessness because they cannot bear their own helplessness and the possibility of their own disappearance. But to pray to God can afford us an opening. To pray is to ask for what White describes as invisible help. And to ask for such invisible help is to ask for the help that we do not as yet know we need. How easy it is to walk right past the hand that is offered. But White knows how to read our crossed arms. He tries to loosen our folded grip and encourages us to ask ourselves, what invisible help might I be walking past right now in my life? Invisible help is the help that's waiting for you. It's right here. You've just got to ask the right, beautiful and disturbing question.
Give me Jesus. midnight was my cry. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You may have all this world. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You may have all this world with its troubles and cares. For this I am sure. Give me Jesus.
Weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning. I wonder how many nights the psalmist's night lasted. How much those who weep wish to wake up one morning with new vigor and strength, new courage and hope. Is this the line that will allow her to come home? She might be just one step away from home, although it may take her a whole life to take that one step. We often read about such a sudden turn of events in the Psalms. Only Psalm 88 closes by saying, "You have taken from me friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend." No, the Psalms do not expect us to just pull ourselves together and pretend that all is fine. It would be a gross misinterpretation of those prayers to think that they want us to follow someone else's heroics. Yes, they do want to instill hope, but not at the expense of betraying our own unique feelings and experiences. They rather allow us to have compassion for exactly the way that we hold the conversation of life. Weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning. Night and day, day and night, this daily cycle is deeply embedded in our psyche and experience. The challenge is to trust the night as much as we trust the day, to trust our disappearance as much as we trust our appearance. We rise and we die and we rise. Darkness and light keep greeting each other, not only at the beginning and end of our lives, but each day and each night. We do not move from strength to strength, but from strength to weakness and from weakness to strength, from fullness to emptiness and from emptiness to fullness. Many of Picasso's characters are cloaked, covering, concealing, protecting themselves. Such embrace is intensified when they're holding a child in their arms. They have withdrawn into their own world. What will it take to draw them out? Our psalmist is convinced that those who listen deeply, the night always comes with a promise. Darkness will not last forever. As certain as the coming of the dusk is, as certain is the arrival of the dawn. The natural cycles of day and night, of sunset and sunrise, become God's mouthpiece. They reassure the psalmist of God's commitment to bring light. But we have to hold this conversation of life with compassion to ourselves in our human existence. One half of the conversation of life is always about disappearance, about what you must give away and let go of. Refusing to have that conversation means being at war with reality almost 50% of the time. So having equal faith in the part of you that is fading away might involve feeling just as much alive, just as much yourself when things are being taken from you as when they are being given to you. The challenge of no longer holding on to people and dynamics beyond the time in which they were gifted to you. White reminds us that faith encourages us to embrace all of life, to trust that there is an aliveness that is not limited to when we feel blessed and gifted. The challenge is to have equal faith in the part of us that is fading away, to know how and when to let go, and to trust that we are held in love even when we are falling. Weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning. What if the joy of the morning is not the result of an external change, but rather the gift that comes to us when something within us has shifted during the conversation? Our psalmist called for an invisible help and experienced a new morning. As I listened to her breaking out in song, I wonder if her experience of healing has to be necessarily read as a change of circumstances. Could her joyful praise not also be the result of being able to hold the conversation in a new way? I will exalt you, Lord, for you lifted me out of the depths and did not let my enemies gloat over me. Lord my God, I called to you for help, and you healed me. You, Lord, brought me up from the realm of the dead. You spared me from going down to the pit. Sing the praises of the Lord. You, his faithful people, praise his holy name. The reality is that the change of circumstances is often not in our hands, but the way we approach and interpret them is within our power. As she breaks out in song, we hear that she has been lifted out of the depths. These might very well be the depths of a depression that so often accompanies situations that rob us of all energy and hope. The mocking and gloating voices she heard throughout the night have been silenced. She speaks about having been spared and healed. To be brought up from the realm of the dead might be her way of saying that she does no longer feel numb and dead inside. Her experience of renewed joy is such that she even breaks out in dance. You turned my wailing into dancing. You removed my sackcloth and clothed me with joy, that my heart may sing your praises and not be silent. Lord my God, I will praise you forever. What we witness is not just a process of transformation, but one of transfiguration. The change of heart and mind seeks bodily expression. There's a change of appearance and form. Again, White helps us to see the full beauty of such metamorphosis. It takes getting out beyond yourself and joining the movable dance, like nature of reality. Better to join the dance no matter how awkwardly. Sing the song no matter how far out of tune you are at first. Write the line, no matter that it doesn't say what you wanted to say in its first difficult draft, rather than sit in abstraction around the edges. When Picasso settled in Paris in 1904, he began to emerge from his blue period. His palette began to include soft, joyful pink, red and orange. It marked the beginning of his rose period, a period of increased warmth and lightness. The harlequin represents the artist at play. Picasso gave himself permission to regress to a child at play. Such escape inspired playful innovation and creativity. It helped him to develop his own artistic identity and style. Later he would explain how colors, like features, follow the change of the emotions. Indeed, weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning of a new day or a new period in our lives. We're always just one step away from it, although it may take our whole life to take that one step. And so, as you leave from here, may God hear you, hold you, love you, and enfold you. Amen.
Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. Oh, my Lord, what a morning. When the stars begin to fall. When the stars begin to fall. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. Oh, my Lord, what a morning. When the stars begin to fall. When the stars begin to fall. Don't quit all my worldly ways. Join that heavenly band. Don't quit all my worldly ways. Join that heavenly band. Oh, my Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. Oh, my Lord, what a morning. When the stars begin to fall. Don't quit.